I never heard of C-56 until I was sitting in a meeting of the Air Pollution Control Commission, and Marion Dawson, one of the citizens from the area, came in complaining about that company and talking about what C-56 was. I came back to Lansing after that meeting extremely concerned about what she'd said. Began to talk to Dr. Truckin and Lee Jager and others within the executive branch, and that's what began our enforcement action. This was not an internally generated enforcement action. It came as a direct result of the citizens complaining about it. And I can't tell you why we never heard of that chemical or this company prior to that time. All I can tell you is, at least as far as I'm concerned, as far as the legal end of this is concerned, that's how we found out what was going on and what C-56 was. I knew what ketone was. I'd been reading about that in the paper and all the problems down in Virginia, and thinking how lucky we were that we didn't have the problem.
And the DNR and the Water Resource Commission didn't know Hooker was making C-56?
I'm sure they did.
But they didn't realize the toxicity of it.
That's perhaps true. I couldn't tell you. I just don't know. I don't know. All I can tell you is that when I asked what C-56 was, and asked specifically based upon a statement that Mrs. Dawson had made before the Air Pollution Control Commission, I asked specifically, is it true that C-56 is a component of ketone? Is it true that it's as toxic as ketone? The answer I got back from George Sue, one of the technical people in the Air Quality Division, the answer I got back from Dr. Truckin, from Andy Hogarth, and some of the other people in the DNR that worked on this was yes, C-56 is what makes ketone toxic. So it didn't take long for the right people to get the answer, but they all tell me, the people I talk to, that they've never been asked those kinds of questions until I asked them. So I guess to answer your question, we have to know why people who knew what was going on there, the engineers from the Water Resources Commission, folks like that, why didn't they talk to the chemists? I don't know. You have to ask them that. All I can tell you is, the best of my knowledge, they didn't.
Well, are we left then in this state at the whims and caprice of a few diligent citizens to raise these issues before the commissions?
Well, I wouldn't call that whim or caprice. That to me is the democratic system, and I believe in it. I think that if the citizens catch on to it before government does, the citizens ought to be able to raise hell, and the government ought to do something. I would like to see the government able to move on these things before it became a matter of citizens' concern. I would have preferred to have been brought into the Hooker problem 4 or 5 years before Mrs. Dawson came into the commission meeting and told us what was going on there. And I can't account for you why we weren't brought in. All I can say to you is that partly because of that kind of thing, the governor reacted by taking the enforcement authority and moving it a different place. The Department of Natural Resources reacted by taking a small number of highly competent people and giving them that enforcement authority and telling them to work with me and do something. And that as to those people and as to our relationship in the past year, I rate them as highly competent, dedicated people that are doing their damnedest. I can't tell you what went wrong before they got into the act. I can just tell you that I think we're better prepared to handle it now. But everybody has to recognize that there's only 5 of them over there and signed on enforcement. There's only 5 lawyers here. So we're talking about 10 people. And 10 people are not going to be able to handle hundreds of problems in a short period of time. So there has to be priorities.